In this video, I'm going to give an introduction to tKinter, which is a library we can use to create graphical user interfaces for our Python programs. Okay, so unfortunately, we're not going to be able to put these on Google Colab. So instead, you're going to have to get PyCharmer or whatever Python application you're running on your local computer, or I think PyCharmer is in the lab, and upload to Moodle. Okay, so that'll be a little bit of a change. Not as convenient, but we'll figure it out. Okay. So most of the program we've done so far, probably in your college careers, maybe all of it, has been text-based mostly. Okay, and that's not really how the real world works anymore. So this tKinter is very similar to other graphical packages as far as the terminology goes. And so if you're writing a C++ program or a Java, similar, but a little bit more different, I guess. But if you're writing a graphical interface for any of those, and most programs today are graphical user interfaces, if they're not web-based or mobile, they're going to look very much like this. Okay. So tKinter is an option. Of course, it's pretty common out there for GUI applications. Works on Windows, works on the Mac, works on Linux, and various Unix systems. Okay. Other things we could have been using, Kiwi, Python Qt, or WX Python. Okay, but tKinter is the most widely used by far. Okay, and I'm at the Geeks for Geeks tutorial, which I will post there. Rather than creating new material that wasn't as good, I'm just going to use this. It's good stuff. Okay, so here's the reason we're going to use tKinter. Okay, so we're going to create windows and dialog boxes for our programs. So just like any other program you would use on Windows or the Mac, it's going to be able to pop up a window. It's going to be able to pop up a dialog box, which allows users to input things into the program. Okay. You can also build a GUI for the desktop application. Okay. So you'll have the whole interface, which will have buttons, menus, everything else that you want. Okay. You can add a GUI to a command line program, which is possible to do that. You can create custom widgets. You can prototype a GUI. It's a quick way to do that for design ideas. Okay. So it's all based on this idea of widgets. Okay, so you're typically going to create a window first. Once you've created the window object, then you're going to create various widgets that go on the window that you're talking about here. Okay, so these are the elements of a graphical user interface, right? They're labels, buttons, checkboxes, menu bars, radio buttons, and things like that. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at here. Okay. So here are the basic widgets that are available and what they do. So we're going to use a label when we want to display text or an image onto the screen. A button, like you would on a web page, is going to be able to add an action. Okay, you click a button, something happens. The canvas will be used, a canvas widget to draw pictures, do other things like that. Combo box has a down arrow. It's like a bunch of options. You have check boxes or check buttons. We have a bunch of options, and you can pick any number of them. The radio button also has a bunch of options. You can only pick one. There's an entry, which you can use to input a single line of entry from the user. There's a frame. A frame is an organizational unit, kind of like a sub window. Okay. Then we have a message. It's like a label. Okay. We can scale things. We can have a scroll bar, spin box, when you have a bunch of options from a given set of values. Text box allows for multi-line input from the user, and then the menu, of course, to create menu of all kinds. Okay. So here's some basic code, and I've gone ahead and put this into PyCharmer, and let me share everything so you can see the pop-up. If not, it may not show the pop-up. Okay. So I've gone over to PyCharmer, and if you're, we haven't used PyCharmer much, but just to remember, you create a new project to put stuff in, you create your file, and it doesn't let you move it, which is very interesting. There we go. Okay, so I've copied and pasted the code over here. So it's from tKinter import star. tKinter should be there. I didn't have to install anything. If you do need to do anything, remember that PyCharmer has this Python package tab down at the bottom. And if you go there, you can actually go and install new packages. Okay. Did that freeze up on me? Yes, it did. That's weird. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, we do a force quit. Oh, it seems okay now. Maybe I don't need to. Okay, let me go back. Okay, yeah, it's okay now. Not sure what that was about. But yeah, the Python package is where you can do the new packages. Okay. So anyway, here I'm including everything. Okay. And there's also a second TTK package, which we're also going to import everything from that. Okay. So we're then going to write the code to create the main window. So the TK with a capital T function creates a window for us. We're going to call it root. So root is equal to that. Okay. We're then going to add our first widget by saying root.title equal to first program. Okay. So that's going to appear on the outside of the window. Okay. We're then going to create a label. Okay. So we can put something to show in the window. We've got label is equal to, okay, the label widget. It's going in the window root. You have more than one window going at the same time. The text we want is hello world. Okay. And then all of this gets packed. Packed is what actually puts it onto the screen. Okay. Without the pack, it just would say, okay, I've made one. So what? Okay. We're then going to call the root's main loop. Okay. So that's going to deal with the event driven part and buttons and making sure everything happens. Okay, so as long as that's running, then your graphical user interface is running. Okay, so if you run this, remember in PyCharm, if you haven't used it in a while, if you just click the run button, it'll run whatever the last thing was that you were doing, or you can pick from this list of what you want. You can also right click and then say run exactly what you want. Okay, when I run this, it may be hard to notice, but over here in the corner, you drag it back over this way, you see that it's created a window for us. The default size is pretty small, at least on my Mac, it puts it at the far left. Okay, but it's created, again, the title goes up here for first program, and then the hello world is the label that we've created. Okay, and we could, and I needed to have, can I get back to that? It's interesting. Sometimes when they're open, yeah, you get that little, at least on the Mac, it's a little rocket looking thing. I'm not sure what you get on Windows or other systems. You can close that, and that stops the program. Okay, so we could certainly put another label onto here. Okay, copy that, paste that. Have to give it a different label, a different name. Okay, put something else here. How are you? Make that a question mark. Pack that as well. Okay, so now I can hit the run button again, and you see that if you're on a phone, I'm sorry, this can be super teeny, but hopefully it makes sense. So you can put it in whatever you want there. Okay, and then by closing that, if you notice over here in the run window, it's still running. So click on that. Now my process is finished and I'm back to where I can edit the code. Okay, so now let me go back just to the tutorial. That'll be easier for folks to see. Okay. This wants to pop up stuff. Okay, so that was that one. Okay, and then from there, on the left-hand side, if you go up, you see that there's a whole bunch of things that we can do. Okay, so there's a whole one here on what are widgets, creating a button, the label, more information on it, radio buttons, check buttons, all these things. Okay, so they just build on to whatever it is that you want to look at. So the what are widgets, I guess it's worth looking at that one. Okay, so again, a widget is just going to be an element of the GUI. Okay, it's going to display some information, or it's going to allow some interaction with the user. Okay, so in tKinter, widgets are objects. Okay, they're instances of classes that represent all the different things that we're talking about here. Okay, so because that's why we have to go through and add a different name for everything. So here's an example of a frame. Okay, again, we're creating the root window like we did before. We're creating a frame inside the root window. We're packing that frame that actually puts it onto the screen. We're then adding a button. Okay, and then we're packing the button. Then we're running the main loop. Okay, now this button wouldn't do anything yet, but there would be a button on the screen with that. Okay, and we saw this list before, so it's all the same. But the things that we can do, okay, so again, creating the new widget doesn't make it appear on the screen. To do that, we have to either pack, grid, or place. Pack is typically what we see used, okay? But the grid will allow us to put widgets into a table, okay? So we can have 2 dimensions for dealing with stuff, okay? And then the place will tell us exactly where we want something, okay? So sometimes you want to do that, okay, but not always, okay? So once you've got the basics of that working, and you can try that example, okay, the next step is to go through just what the different options are, okay? So like, for example, you're probably going to have a button in your program that we're going to work on in class today, okay? So, and this just goes through and explains the button here, okay? So we're creating a button, okay? And then the output would be that you've got this click me button here, okay? And then there's also, if you wanted to create a button without using the TK themed widget, it goes through and gives you some options for that to look different, okay? We're still not to where the buttons are going to do anything, but that would be a separate tutorial. But that's the basic idea, okay? So I think rather than going on and on and on about this, I think the next step would be, I'll post a link to this, you can take a look at it, to go ahead and work through this. Okay, so I'll have an assignment on Moodle, and you can go through and work to create that assignment, okay, with some room for some creativity if you want, okay? So if you have questions about this, make sure that you let me know.